Emma Reynolds adjusted the baby monitor on her nightstand, listening to Sophia's gentle breathing through the speaker. At 6 months old, her daughter finally slept through most nights, a blessing after months of exhaustion. She glanced at the clock, 6:30 a.m. David would be up soon for his morning run before heading to the law firm. "You're already awake?" David's voice came from beside her, groggy but warm. Emma smiled. "Just checking on Sophia. Go back to sleep for a few minutes." Instead, David propped himself up, his dark hair tousled from sleep. "I've got that breakfast meeting with the Harrington case team. I should get moving." He kissed her forehead before sliding out of bed. Their morning routine unfolded with practiced efficiency, David in the shower while Emma prepared coffee, Sophia waking right on schedule at 7:15. Their 3-bedroom home in the suburbs of Boston wasn't extravagant, but it was perfect for their growing family. David's career as a corporate attorney was thriving, while Emma had recently returned part-time to her position as a marketing director. "I'm interviewing another potential babysitter today," Emma mentioned as she handed David his travel mug. "This one has excellent references, worked for the Millers for 3 years until they moved to Chicago." David nodded, adjusting his tie. "What's her name again?" "Vanessa Carter. Goes by Nessa. She's 26, degree in early childhood education." "Sounds promising." David kissed Sophia's head, then Emma's lips. "Good luck. Let me know how it goes." After David left, Emma settled into the familiar rhythm of her morning with Sophia feeding, changing, playing on the colorful mat in the living room. Though she loved these moments, the constant demands of motherhood sometimes left her feeling drained. Finding the right babysitter would give her breathing room, allow her to focus more on her career without the constant worry about childcare arrangements. At precisely 11 a.m., the doorbell rang. Emma smoothed her blouse, adjusted Sophia on her hip, and opened the door. Vanessa Carter was not what Emma had expected. The young woman on her doorstep had warm brown eyes, shoulder-length chestnut hair, and a smile that immediately put Emma at ease. She wore simple jeans and a blue blouse, professional but approachable. "Mrs. Reynolds? I'm Nessa. It's so nice to meet you." Her voice was soft, melodic. "Please call me Emma. And this is Sophia." The baby gurgled happily, reaching toward the stranger. "Hello, beautiful girl," Nessa cooed, her eyes lighting up. "May I?" She held out her arms, and to Emma's surprise, Sophia went willingly, unusual for a baby who typically clung to her mother around strangers. The interview progressed smoothly. Nessa answered questions about her experience, her child care philosophy, and her availability with thoughtful, articulate responses. She demonstrated a natural ease with Sophia, who seemed enchanted by the young woman. "I believe in creating a nurturing environment that supports development through play and exploration," Nessa explained as she gently bounced Sophia on her knee. "Children thrive on routine but also need freedom to discover their world." By the end of the hour, Emma felt a sense of relief she hadn't experienced in months. "When could you start?" she asked, surprising herself with the immediacy of the offer. Nessa's smile widened. "I'm available whenever you need me. How about a trial run tomorrow? I have meetings until 3 p.m. "That would be perfect." As Emma showed Nessa out, she noticed David's car pulling into the driveway, unusual for him to come home for lunch. "I forgot some files," he explained, stepping inside. His eyes landed on Nessa, who was gathering her purse to leave. "You must be the babysitter candidate." "David, this is Vanessa Carter," Emma introduced them. "Nessa, my husband David. It's a pleasure to meet you, Mr. Reynolds." Nessa extended her hand, her smile warm but professional. David shook it, holding perhaps a moment longer than necessary. "David, please. Any luck with the interview, Em?" "Actually, Nessa's starting tomorrow. I think she's perfect for Sophia." Something flickered across David's face, approval, interest, before he nodded. "Wonderful. We've been searching for weeks." After Nessa left, David retrieved his files from his home office. "She seems qualified," he commented casually. "She's amazing with Sophia. I think this might actually work out." David kissed Emma's cheek. "I trust your judgment completely." The next day, Emma prepared detailed instructions for Sophia's schedule, emergency contacts, and preferences. She found herself nervous about leaving her daughter despite her confidence in Nessa. "We'll be just fine," Nessa assured her, already holding Sophia comfortably on her hip. "Won't we, sweetheart?" Emma's meetings ran longer than expected. When she finally arrived home, she found Sophia napping peacefully and the house tidier than she'd left it. Nessa sat at the kitchen table reviewing flashcards for what appeared to be a psychology course. "You're taking classes?" Emma asked, setting down her laptop bag. Nessa nodded. "Part-time. Child psychology. I hope that's okay. I only study when Sophia's asleep." "Of course." That's impressive, actually. Over the next few weeks, Nessa became an indispensable part of their household. She arrived promptly each morning, greeted Sophia with genuine enthusiasm, and often stayed late when Emma's work demanded it. She left detailed notes about Sophia's day, what she ate, how long she napped, new sounds or movements she'd attempted. David, too, seemed impressed with Nessa. She's organized, responsible. Sophia adores her, he commented one evening as they prepared dinner. I know. I feel like we won the childcare lottery. Emma chopped vegetables, watching David stir the pasta sauce. She mentioned she doesn't have family nearby. I was thinking of inviting her for dinner sometime, not as the babysitter, but as our guest. David nodded. That's a great idea. She's become important to Sophia. It would be nice to know her better. The dinner happened the following Friday. Nessa arrived in a simple dress, her hair styled differently than her usual practical ponytail. She brought a homemade apple pie and a small stuffed elephant for Sophia. You didn't need to bring anything, Emma protested, accepting the pie. My grandmother's recipe, Nessa explained. It's the least I could do for the invitation. The evening flowed easily. Nessa shared stories of her childhood in Pennsylvania, her move to Boston for college, her dreams of eventually opening a daycare center. Emma noticed how David leaned forward when Nessa spoke, his attention completely focused on her words. What about your family? Emma asked as they enjoyed the pie, which was, indeed, delicious. A shadow crossed Nessa's face. My parents died in a car accident when I was 19. My grandmother raised me, but she passed away last year. I'm so sorry, Emma said, reaching to touch Nessa's hand. It's been difficult, Nessa admitted. That's why I'm grateful for families like yours. It helps fill that emptiness. David refilled Nessa's wine glass. You're always welcome here. You're practically family now. Emma noticed something in his tone, a warmth that seemed slightly different from his usual friendliness. She dismissed the thought immediately. David was simply being kind to someone who had become important to their daughter. As autumn progressed, Nessa's role expanded. She began occasionally preparing meals that Emma could heat up after work, organized Sophia's growing collection of toys, even helped with laundry, though it wasn't part of her responsibilities. You're doing too much, Emma protested one evening, finding Nessa folding baby clothes. I enjoy it, Nessa insisted. I love being here. Sometimes it feels more like home than my apartment. Emma felt a surge of affection for the young woman. Well, we love having you. David's law firm entered its busy season, with him often working late into the evening. On those nights, Nessa would stay until he returned, keeping Emma company after Sophia was asleep. He works so hard, Nessa commented one night as they shared tea in the kitchen. You both do. Emma sighed. The hours are brutal sometimes. Before Sophia, we at least had weekends together. Now it feels like we're ships passing in the night. Every marriage has seasons, Nessa said with surprising wisdom. My grandmother used to say that. When David finally arrived home that night, Emma was already in bed. She heard his voice downstairs, speaking quietly with Nessa. Their conversation lasted longer than a simple goodnight, but Emma was too tired to think much of it. The first subtle change Emma noticed was David's increased interest in Sophia's daily activities. How was her day? He would ask Nessa directly, rather than waiting for Emma's summary. He began texting during the day to check in. Messages that sometimes Nessa answered from Emma's phone with her permission. Then came the small gifts, a scarf for Nessa when the weather turned cold, a book on child psychology she had mentioned wanting to read. Just a thank you for all she does, David explained when Emma raised an eyebrow. That's thoughtful of you, Emma said, ignoring the slight discomfort she felt. One Saturday morning, Emma woke early to find David's side of the bed empty. She found him in the kitchen, Sophia in her high chair, and Nessa, unexpectedly present, preparing pancakes. What's going on? Emma asked, confused. David looked up, smiling. You were sleeping so soundly, I didn't want to wake you. Sophia was up early, so I called Nessa to see if she could help while I finished some work documents. On a Saturday? Emma tried to keep the edge from her voice. The Harrison merger is closing Monday, he explained. Just a few hours. Then I'm all yours for the weekend. Nessa wiped her hands on a towel. I should go. I just came to help with breakfast. No, stay, David said quickly. We have plenty. Right, Em? Emma nodded, forcing a smile. Of course. Thank you for coming over. As they ate, Emma observed the easy rapport between David and Nessa. Inside jokes about Sophia's expressions, Shared glances when the baby did something amusing. It wasn't inappropriate exactly, but something had shifted. A triangle had formed where once there had been only a straight line between her and David. That night, after Sophia was asleep, Emma broached the subject. Nessa's wonderful with Sophia, but I think we need some boundaries. David looked up from his laptop. What do you mean? Calling her on weekends, the gifts? I'm worried she's becoming too integrated into our family. David closed his computer. She's been a lifesaver, Emma. Especially with my schedule lately. I know, but what? You were the one who wanted to make her feel welcome. Like part of the family. As Sophia's caregiver, yes. Not as. Emma trailed off, unsure how to articulate her concerns without sounding accusatory. David's expression hardened slightly. Not as what exactly? Nothing. Forget it. Emma turned away, unwilling to voice her growing suspicion that David's interest in Nessa might extend beyond appreciation for her childcare skills. The following weeks brought more subtle changes. David began arriving home earlier on days when Nessa was scheduled to stay late. Emma would find them in the living room, Sophia between them, engaged in conversation that stopped abruptly when she entered. Nessa remained unfailingly kind and competent with Sophia, but Emma noticed her growing more reserved around her, while maintaining that easy warmth with David. The dynamic was shifting in ways that made Emma increasingly uneasy. Then came the text message. Not meant for her eyes, but impossible to ignore. Emma had borrowed David's phone to call her mother when her own battery died. As she ended the call, a notification appeared, looking forward to seeing you today. Sophia misses you already. N. The message itself was innocent enough. Nessa often texted updates about Sophia. But why directly to David? And the phrasing, Sophia misses you already, carried an intimacy that made Emma's stomach tighten. That evening, she checked David's phone while he showered, something she'd never done before. The text history with Nessa was extensive, daily exchanges that went well beyond childcare coordination. Nothing explicitly inappropriate, but the frequency and tone suggested a connection that existed independently of Emma. Is there something going on between you and Nessa? Emma asked directly when David emerged from the bathroom. He froze momentarily before continuing to towel his hair. What are you talking about? The texts, David? The gifts? The way you look at her? She's Sophia's babysitter. We text about Sophia. Every day? Multiple times? David sighed, sitting on the edge of the bed. Emma, she's young, alone in the city. She's become important to Sophia, so yes, I check in on her. Make sure she's okay. That's not your responsibility. No, but it's the decent thing to do. His tone was defensive now. I can't believe you're suggesting something inappropriate. Emma wanted to believe him. Needed to believe him. I'm not suggesting anything. I'm asking. And I'm telling you there's nothing to worry about. He took her hand. Nessa is Sophia's caregiver. That's all. The reassurance held for nearly a week before Emma's world imploded. She had a meeting canceled unexpectedly and decided to return home early, looking forward to spending extra time with Sophia. She entered quietly, hearing Sophia's delighted giggles from the living room. What she saw froze her in the doorway. David, who should have been at work, sitting on the couch with Nessa beside him, their heads close together as they watched Sophia play on the floor. David's arm rested casually along the back of the couch, his fingers just touching Nessa's shoulder. What is this? Emma's voice cut through the room. They jumped apart, David standing abruptly. Emma, I didn't expect you home until 5. Clearly. Her eyes moved between them, noting Nessa's flushed cheeks, David's guilty expression. My afternoon deposition was rescheduled, David explained quickly. I thought I'd come home early, spend some time with Sophia. With Sophia, Emma repeated flatly. Is that why you're sitting so close to her babysitter? Nessa stood, gathering Sophia into her arms. I should go. No, Emma said sharply. Put my daughter down. I want you to explain what's happening in my home. Emma, you're overreacting, David began. Am I? Then why do you look guilty? Why is she blushing? Why are you even here, David? Nessa placed Sophia in her playpen, the baby beginning to fuss at the tension in the room. Mrs. Reynolds, nothing inappropriate was happening. We were just... Don't... Emma cut her off. Don't insult me by lying. David stepped forward. Emma, please. Let's discuss this calmly. How long? Emma demanded. How long has this been going on? The silence that followed was answer enough. David looked at the floor, then at Nessa, who had tears forming in her eyes. I trusted you, Emma said, her voice breaking. Both of you. With my home, my child. She turned to Nessa. Get out. Now. Emma, David started. And you can go with her if that's what you want. Nessa gathered her belongings quickly, not meeting Emma's eyes. I'm sorry, she whispered before slipping out the door. Left alone with David, Emma felt rage and heartbreak warring within her. How could you? It just happened, he said weakly. I never meant to. To what? Betray me? Destroy our family? Nothing physical happened, he insisted. We've been talking, yes, growing closer. But we never. Stop. Emma held up her hand. I don't want details. I want you to leave. I can't look at you right now. David nodded slowly. I'll go to a hotel. But Emma, we need to talk about this. About us, about Sophia. There is no us right now, Emma said, moving to pick up her crying daughter. Just go. After David left, Emma sat in the rocking chair, holding Sophia close, tears streaming down her face. How had she missed the signs? How had she invited this woman into their lives, their home, only to have her try to take everything Emma loved? The next morning brought no clarity, only exhaustion from a sleepless night. Emma called her office, requesting emergency personal leave. She ignored David's texts and calls, responding only once to say that Sophia was fine and he could see her the following weekend. By afternoon, Sophia became fussy, refusing her bottle, her face flushed with fever. Emma called the pediatrician, who suggested bringing her in immediately. Dr. Patel examined Sophia thoroughly, her expression growing increasingly concerned. How long has she been refusing to eat? Just today, Emma explained. She seemed fine yesterday. Her symptoms are concerning. I'd like to run some tests, possibly admit her for observation. Fear gripped Emma's heart. What do you think it is? I'm not sure yet. Could be several things. Has she been exposed to any illness? Any changes in her environment or diet? Emma thought of Nessa, of the betrayal just discovered. Her babysitter. She's been with us for months, but I just fired her yesterday. Dr. Patel nodded, making notes. And before that, did Sophia spend time with anyone else who might have been ill? No, just us and Nessa. A terrible thought began forming in Emma's mind. Doctor, could someone have made her sick intentionally? The pediatrician looked up sharply. That's a serious concern. Why would you ask that? Emma explained the situation with Nessa, the confrontation, the timing of Sophia's sudden illness. Dr. Patel listened carefully, her expression grave. Let's not jump to conclusions, but I'll order a toxicology screen along with the other tests. In the meantime, I'm admitting Sophia to Children's Hospital. I'll call ahead so they're expecting you. Emma nodded numbly, gathering Sophia in her arms. As she prepared to leave, she texted David, taking Sophia to Children's Hospital. She's very sick. Meet us there. At the hospital, events moved quickly. Sophia was admitted, blood drawn, IVs started. David arrived, his face pale with worry, the tension between him and Emma temporarily set aside in their concern for their daughter. What are they saying? He asked, watching as nurses monitored Sophia's vital signs. They're running tests. Dr. Patel is concerned it might be. Emma couldn't finish the sentence. Hours later, a specialist entered the room, introducing himself as Dr. Ramirez, a pediatric toxicologist. We found something concerning in Sophia's blood work, he explained. There are traces of a compound that isn't normally found in children. It's a type of plant alkaloid that can cause the symptoms Sophia is experiencing. What does that mean? David asked, his voice tight. It means she may have ingested something toxic, Dr. Ramirez said carefully. Given her age and the fact that she's not mobile enough to access household chemicals or plants on her own. Someone gave it to her, Emma finished, her worst fears confirmed. The doctor nodded gravely. We've notified the police. They'll want to speak with you both. David sank into a chair, his face in his hands. This can't be happening. Emma stood by Sophia's crib, watching her daughter's labored breathing. Nessa, she whispered. It had to be Nessa. When Detective Michael Rivera arrived, he interviewed them separately, taking detailed notes about Nessa's employment, the discovery of the affair, the timing of Sophia's illness. We'll need Ms. Carter's full information, he explained. Address, phone number, references. We'll be investigating her background thoroughly. Emma provided what she could, realizing how little she actually knew about the woman she had trusted with her child. Will Sophia be okay? She asked the detective, her voice breaking. The doctors are optimistic. They've identified the toxin and are treating her accordingly. Children are remarkably resilient, Mrs. Reynolds. His expression softened slightly. We'll find Ms. Carter. In the meantime, hospital security has been notified. No one unauthorized will get near your daughter. That night, as David stepped out to make calls to his office, Emma sat beside Sophia's crib, gently stroking her daughter's hair. How could I have been so blind? She whispered. I brought that woman into her home, trusted her with you. When David returned, he stood at the window looking out at the darkening sky. I share the blame, he said quietly. More than share it. If we hadn't. He couldn't finish the sentence, guilt evident in every line of his body. Emma felt a complex mixture of emotions, anger at David for his betrayal, fear for Sophia's health, and underneath it all, a growing rage toward Nessa, the woman who had infiltrated their lives, gained their trust, and harmed their child. I want her found, she said, her voice hard. I want her to pay for what she's done to Sophia. David nodded. I know. We both do. The night passed slowly, Sophia's condition stabilizing but not improving significantly. The doctors continued treatment, focusing on flushing the toxin from her system and supporting her through the process. Emma and David maintained their uneasy truce, taking turns at Sophia's bedside, stepping out to make necessary calls. By morning, they were both exhausted, hollow-eyed, running on coffee and fear. When Dr. Ramirez entered the room, his expression was cautiously optimistic. She's responding well to treatment, he told them. Her kidney and liver function are improving. The toxin is being eliminated from her system. She should make a full recovery. Emma felt tears of relief spring to her eyes. Thank God, she whispered. When will she be able to come home? Dr. Ramirez considered. We want to monitor her for at least another 24 hours, make sure all her systems are functioning normally before we discharge her. But if she continues improving at this rate, possibly tomorrow afternoon. Detective Rivera returned mid-morning, his expression serious as he asked to speak with them privately. A nurse agreed to sit with Sophia while they stepped into a small consultation room down the hall. We've been looking into Vanessa Carter, he began, and we've found some concerning information. Emma felt her heart rate increase. What kind of information? The woman you knew as Vanessa Carter, her real name is Vanessa Mercer. She's changed her identity several times in the past 5 years. Why? Emma gasped. The detective consulted his notes. She has a history of what we call inserting herself into families, particularly families with young children and a successful husband. She gains employment as a nanny or babysitter, becomes indispensable, and then begins pursuing the husband. David ran a hand over his face. Has she done this before? Yes, the detective nodded. At least twice that we can document, in Boston 3 years ago and in Philadelphia before that. In both cases, she was eventually discovered and disappeared before charges could be filed. Emma felt dizzy with this new information. And the poisoning? She managed to ask. Has she ever harmed a child before? Detective Rivera's expression was grim. There was an incident in Boston. A child became ill with similar symptoms to Sophia's, but the parents didn't pursue testing, didn't connect it to the babysitter until later, after she was gone. The statute of limitations hasn't expired, though. If we can find her, we can potentially charge her for that case as well as this one. Have you found her? David asked. The detective shook his head. Not yet. We've put out an alert, have officers watching her last known address, but it appears she vacated her apartment 3 days ago. Right after I discovered them, Emma said. Right after Sophia got sick. The detective nodded. The timing is suggestive. We're checking traffic cameras, credit card activity, cell phone records, but so far she seems to have gone off the grid. When they returned to Sophia's room, the nurse reported that she'd been awake, asking for water, a good sign. Emma rushed to her daughter's side. Hey, baby girl, she whispered as Sophia's eyes fluttered open. Mommy's here. Daddy too. David moved to the opposite side of the crib. Sophia will recover from this, he said with quiet determination. And we will find Nessa. Make her pay for what she's done. That afternoon, as Sophia napped, Emma stepped into the hallway to call her mother and update her on the situation. She was just ending the call when she saw a hospital volunteer approaching with a vase of flowers. Delivery for Sophia Reynolds, the young woman said cheerfully. Emma thanked her, taking the arrangement, a colorful bouquet of daisies and carnations with a small teddy bear nestled among the blooms. She carried them into the room, setting them on the windowsill away from Sophia's reach. Who are they from? David asked, looking up from his laptop. I don't know, Emma realized, reaching for the small envelope tucked among the flowers. She opened it, read the brief message inside, and felt her blood turn to ice. Get well soon, Angel. This isn't over. Love, N. Emma's hands shook as she passed the card to David, who read it, his face darkening with anger. She's threatening our daughter, he said in disbelief. After what she's already done. Emma was already reaching for the call button to summon a nurse. We need to call Detective Rivera, she said. And we need security in here now. The nurse arrived quickly, concerned by the urgency in Emma's voice. When Emma explained and showed her the card, the nurse immediately called hospital security. Within minutes, 2 security guards were stationed outside Sophia's door. Detective Rivera was notified and returned to the hospital to collect the flowers and card as evidence. She was here, he said grimly. In the hospital. She or someone working for her. The flowers will be analyzed for prints, DNA, anything that might help us locate her. In the meantime, I'm assigning a police officer to guard Sophia's room 24/7 until we find her. That night, neither Emma nor David left Sophia's side. Despite the police officer stationed outside the door, they were taking no chances. The flowers had shaken them both, the realization that Nessa was still watching, still threatening, still focused on their family. Emma sat in the chair beside Sophia's crib, watching her daughter sleep, finally peaceful, her fever reduced, her color improving. She looked up to find David watching her, his expression unreadable. I'm so sorry, he said quietly. For all of this. For putting our family at risk. I never imagined she would. I know you didn't imagine she would poison our daughter, Emma cut him off. But you invited her into our lives, into our home. You betrayed everything we built together. David looked down, unable to meet her gaze. I have no excuse, he said. None that matters anyway. I was selfish, stupid, blinded by attention, by flattery, by the excitement of something new, something that wasn't weighed down by responsibility, by routine. Emma felt tears sliding down her cheeks. And what about now, she asked. Is it still exciting now that you know what she really is? What she's capable of? David shook his head, looking utterly defeated. Now I just want my family back, he whispered. I want to undo all of it, go back to before I ever met her, before I ruined everything. Emma didn't respond, didn't know how to respond. Part of her wanted to comfort him despite everything, another part wanted to scream at him that he could never undo this damage, never erase what had happened. Instead, she turned back to Sophia, focused on their daughter, on the one innocent in this entire nightmare. I'm going to take her to my parents when she's released, she said finally. We'll stay there until Nessa is found, until I know Sophia is safe. David nodded. I understand, he said, though the pain in his voice was evident. I'll stay in a hotel nearby. I can't be far from her. From either of you. Not until this is over. Emma nodded, accepting this compromise for now. They lapsed into silence, the only sound Sophia's soft breathing and the occasional beep of the monitors. Morning brought improvement, Sophia waking hungry for the first time in days, accepting small sips of clear liquid, small bites of toast. The doctors were pleased with her progress, her blood work showing decreasing levels of the toxin, her vital signs stabilizing. We're on track for discharge this afternoon, Dr. Ramirez confirmed during morning rounds. Just want to see her take a few more fluids, keep them down before we send her home. Emma nodded gratefully, already planning their departure, the police escort to her parents' house in Connecticut, the security measures they'd need to implement. Detective Rivera had arranged everything, coordinating with the local police department in her parents' town, ensuring Sophia would be protected at all times. As discharge approached, Emma packed Sophia's few belongings, the stuffed animals brought from home, the small blanket that still smelled of her nursery. David had gone to pull the car around, bring it to the hospital's secure exit where they'd be met by police officers for the transfer. Emma was just zipping the small bag when her phone chimed with a text message from a number she didn't recognize. She opened it, read the words, and felt her heart stop. I see you're taking our angel home today. Give her a kiss from her real mommy. I'll be seeing you both very soon. Emma's hand shook so badly she nearly dropped the phone. She hit the call button, summoning the nurse, showed her the message. The nurse immediately alerted security. Detective Rivera, who had just left the hospital, turned around and returned within minutes, his expression grim as he read the text. She's escalating, he said. Becoming more bold, more threatening. We need to move you and Sophia now, not wait for the official discharge. He spoke rapidly into his radio, coordinating with officers already positioned around the hospital. Within moments, a team of nurses entered, began disconnecting Sophia from monitors, preparing her for immediate transport. We have a secure vehicle waiting, Detective Rivera explained. Officers will escort you directly to your parents' house in Connecticut. We're not taking any chances. Everything happened quickly after that, Sophia wrapped in blankets, carried by a nurse, Emma and David following closely behind, surrounded by police officers. They moved through service corridors, avoiding public areas of the hospital, emerging at a loading dock where 2 police cruisers and an unmarked SUV waited. Detective Rivera ushered them into the SUV, Sophia secured in a car seat between Emma and David, an officer at the wheel, another in the passenger seat. The small convoy pulled away from the hospital, sirens silent but lights flashing, clearing their path. Emma held Sophia's hand the entire journey, her eyes constantly scanning their surroundings, looking for any sign of Nessa, for any threat to her daughter. They arrived at Emma's parents' house 3 hours later, the property already secured by local police officers, Emma's parents waiting anxiously at the door, her mother rushing forward to take Sophia from Emma's arms, her father embracing Emma, then shaking David's hand despite the circumstances. Detective Rivera oversaw the transfer, ensured the security protocols were in place before preparing to return to the city. "We'll find her," he promised Emma, his expression determined. "We have alerts out nationwide, her photo at every airport, train station, bus terminal. It's just a matter of time." Emma nodded, grateful for his confidence, though she couldn't shake the fear that gripped her, the certainty that Nessa was watching, waiting, planning her next move. Inside the house, Emma's mother had settled Sophia in the guest room that had been hastily converted to a nursery, a portable crib set up, toys arranged on shelves, the room made as familiar as possible for the traumatized child. "She's sleeping now," Emma's mother reported, returning to the living room where Emma, David, and her father waited. "The poor little thing is exhausted, but her color looks better." Emma nodded, sinking onto the sofa, suddenly overwhelmed by everything that had happened in the past week, the discovery of David's affair, Sophia's poisoning, the threats, the fear that seemed to have taken up permanent residence in her chest. Her father sat beside her, his arm around her shoulders. "You're safe here," he said firmly. "We've upgraded the security system, hired additional guards. No one gets near this house without our knowledge." Emma leaned against him, drawing strength from his solid presence. "I know, Dad," she whispered. "I just want this nightmare to be over." David stood awkwardly by the fireplace, unsure of his place in this family tableau. "I should go," he said finally. "I've booked a room at the hotel in town. I'll be close if you need anything." Emma's father looked at him appraisingly. "You could stay here," he offered, surprising everyone, including himself. "There's plenty of room and it might be safer to keep everyone together." Emma started to object, but her father raised a hand. "This isn't about your marriage problems, Princess," he said gently. "This is about keeping Sophia safe, about presenting a united front against this threat." Emma subsided, recognizing the wisdom in her father's words. David looked to her, waiting for her decision. "It's your call," he said quietly. "I'll understand either way." Emma sighed heavily. "Fine," she agreed. "You can stay in the blue room. It's on the opposite side of the house from where Sophia and I will be." Her mother nodded, already moving to prepare the room. David thanked them both, his relief evident in the slump of his shoulders. The next few days established a new routine, Sophia improving steadily, regaining her strength, her appetite, her sunny disposition, seemingly unaware of the danger that surrounded her. The adults took shifts watching her, never leaving her alone for a moment, the house secured like a fortress, police driving by regularly, checking the perimeter. Detective Rivera called daily with updates on the investigation. They traced Nessa's movements to a bus station in Hartford, but the trail went cold there. They'd interviewed former employers, discovered more instances of her insinuating herself into families, always targeting wealthy couples with young children, always pursuing the husband, always disappearing when discovered. They'd found no prior criminal record under any of her known aliases, but they'd uncovered disturbing patterns, a history of obsessive behavior, of assuming identities that weren't hers, of creating elaborate fictions about her past. A week passed, then 2, Sophia fully recovered now, running through her grandparents' house, laughing, playing, seemingly untouched by her ordeal. Emma watched her constantly, vigilant for any sign of lasting effects, any indication that the poisoning had harmed her development. The pediatrician in town who had examined Sophia twice since their arrival assured Emma that children are remarkably resilient, that Sophia appeared to have made a complete recovery. Emma wanted to believe this desperately, needed to believe it, but she couldn't shake the fear, couldn't stop watching for signs, couldn't relax her guard for even a moment. David remained at the house, maintaining a respectful distance from Emma, focusing on Sophia, on keeping her safe, on helping however he could. He worked remotely, took calls in the garden, played with Sophia when Emma needed a break. He didn't push, didn't ask about their future, didn't mention reconciliation, seemed to understand that those conversations must wait until Sophia was truly safe, until Nessa was found and no longer a threat. Emma found herself watching him sometimes when he didn't notice, the gentleness with which he read to Sophia, the patience he showed when she wanted the same book for the 5th time, the genuine delight on his face when she mastered a new skill. She saw the father she fell in love with, the man she thought she knew before Nessa, before the betrayal, and she wondered if anything could ever be salvaged from the wreckage of their marriage. It was a Tuesday afternoon, nearly 3 weeks after Sophia's hospitalization. Emma was in the kitchen preparing Sophia's lunch while her mother entertained the toddler in the living room. David and her father had gone into town for supplies, the house quiet, peaceful, almost normal. Emma was slicing apple into tiny pieces when her phone rang, Detective Rivera's name on the screen. She answered immediately, her heart racing. "Has something happened?" "We think we've found her," the detective said without preamble. "A woman matching Nessa's description was spotted at a motel about 20 miles from your parents' house. Officers are on their way now to investigate." Emma gripped the counter for support. "She's here," she whispered. "She's been here all along, watching us." The detective's voice was calm, steady. "We don't know that for certain yet, but yes, it's possible she's been in the area. We're taking all precautions. The local police have been notified. They're sending additional patrols to your parents' neighborhood. I'll call you as soon as we have confirmation." Emma ended the call, her hands shaking as she dialed David's number. He answered on the first ring. "Emma, what's wrong?" "She's here," she said, unable to keep the panic from her voice. "Detective Rivera just called. They think they've found Nessa at a motel 20 miles from here." David's response was immediate. "We're on our way back. Don't open the doors, don't let anyone in. I'll call the security company, have them send someone right now." Emma agreed, hanging up. She moved quickly to the living room where her mother sat on the floor with Sophia building a tower of blocks. "Mom," she said, trying to keep her voice steady, "we need to get Sophia upstairs now." Her mother looked up, alarmed by Emma's tone. "What's happened?" Emma explained quickly, watching her mother's face pale with understanding. They gathered Sophia and her toys, the little girl protesting at having her play interrupted. Emma took her upstairs to the master bedroom, the most secure room in the house with its heavy door and reinforced locks, her mother following close behind. They just settled Sophia with books and toys on the bed when Emma heard a sound from downstairs, a door opening, closing softly. "Mom," she whispered, "did you lock the back door?" Her mother's eyes widened. "I thought your father did before he left." Emma felt ice flood her veins. She reached for her phone to call 911, but there was no signal, the screen showing searching, searching, searching. "Mom," she said, her voice barely audible, "take Sophia into the bathroom, lock the door. Don't come out until I tell you to." Her mother started to protest, but Emma cut her off. "Now please," she urged. "Just do it." Her mother nodded, gathering Sophia and her favorite stuffed bunny, hurrying into the ensuite bathroom. Emma heard the lock click into place. She moved to the bedroom door, listened, heard nothing, then soft footsteps on the stairs, someone trying to move quietly, someone who knows the house, who knows which steps creak, which to avoid. Emma looked around frantically for a weapon, saw nothing but a heavy crystal vase on the dresser. She grabbed it, positioned herself beside the door, her heart pounding so loudly she was certain it could be heard throughout the house. The footsteps reached the landing, paused, then moved directly toward the master bedroom. The doorknob turned slowly. Emma raised the vase, ready to strike as the door began to open. Then a familiar voice called softly, "Emma? It's me, David. Are you in there?" Emma nearly collapsed with relief, lowering the vase. "David," she gasped, opening the door to find her husband standing there, his face tense with worry. "Where's Sophia?" he asked immediately. "Bathroom with Mom," Emma explained. "I heard someone in the house, thought it might be." David shook his head. "It was me. I came in through the back. We just got home, Dad's parking the car." Emma leaned against the wall, suddenly weak with relief. "I thought she was here," she whispered. "I thought she'd found us." David pulled her into his arms, holding her as she trembled, the adrenaline draining from her body, leaving her exhausted. "It's okay," he murmured. "She's not here. You're safe, Sophia's safe." Emma allowed herself this moment of comfort before pulling away to knock on the bathroom door. "Mom," she called, "it's okay. You can come out. It was just David." Her mother opened the door, Sophia in her arms, the little girl reaching for her father when she sees him. "Dada," she said happily, oblivious to the adult's fear. David took her, kissing the top of her head. "Hey, princess," he said, his voice deliberately light. "Were you having fun with Grandma?" Sophia nodded, pointing to the book they'd been reading. Emma's phone rang suddenly, signal restored. She answered quickly, Detective Rivera's voice coming through. We've confirmed it's her, he said without preamble. Vanessa Mercer is in custody. Officers apprehended her at the motel. She had disguises, wigs, hair dye, false identification. She was planning something, but we got to her first. Emma sank onto the bed, relief washing over her in waves. She's really caught? She asked, needing to hear it again to believe it. Yes, the detective confirmed. She's being transported back to the city as we speak. She'll be charged with attempted murder, child endangerment, stalking, multiple counts. She's looking at significant prison time, Emma. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you for finding her, for keeping Sophia safe. When Emma ended the call, she looked up to find David, her mother, and Sophia all watching her, waiting. They got her, she said simply. She's in custody. She's going to prison. David closed his eyes briefly, his relief palpable. Emma's mother burst into tears, hugging Sophia, who looked confused by the adult's strange behavior. Emma felt something unlock inside her chest, a knot of fear that had been present for so long she'd almost forgotten what it felt like to be without it. Sophia was safe, truly safe. The nightmare was over, or at least this part of it was. There were still statements to give, testimony to prepare, a trial to endure, but the immediate danger had passed, the threat removed. That evening, after Sophia was asleep, Emma sat on the porch swing, watching the sunset. Her father had opened a bottle of champagne to celebrate. Her mother had called everyone they know with the news. David sat beside Emma, not touching but close enough that she could feel his warmth in the cooling evening air. It's over, he said softly, following her gaze to the darkening sky. She's going to prison for a very long time. Emma nodded. She won't be able to hurt Sophia or any other child, she agreed. But she didn't say what they're both thinking, that while Nessa may be gone, the damage she's caused remains, their marriage broken perhaps beyond repair, their trust shattered, their family forever changed by the woman who came into their lives with her gentle smile and deadly intentions. David seemed to read her thoughts. What happens now? He asked carefully. Between us, I mean? Emma continued watching the sunset, considering her answer. I don't know, she said finally. I can't just forget what happened, can't pretend it didn't. But... She turned to look at him directly for the first time. I also can't deny that through all of this, you've been here, fighting for Sophia as hard as I have, putting her safety above everything else. David met her gaze. I love her, he said simply. I love you both. I know I destroyed your trust. I know I hurt you in ways that might be unforgivable. But if there's any chance, any possibility that we could find our way back, I want to try. Emma didn't respond immediately. Instead, she reached out tentatively, took his hand. It won't be easy, she said. It will take time, therapy probably, a lot of it. I'm still angry, still hurt, still not sure I can ever trust you completely again. David nodded, squeezing her hand gently. I understand, he said. I'm willing to do whatever it takes, for however long it takes. Emma looked back at the house where Sophia slept peacefully for the first time in weeks, truly safe. She didn't know if they could rebuild what they once had, didn't know if the foundation was too damaged to support a new structure. But she knew they both loved their daughter, knew that facing this threat together had revealed strengths in both of them she didn't expect. Maybe, she said softly, we can start with that, with maybe. Detective Michael Rivera sat across from Emma and David in the station's interview room, his notebook open, pen poised. I need you to walk me through everything again, he said. Every interaction with Vanessa Mercer, from the beginning. Emma exhaled slowly. I found her through an agency, Premier Childcare Solutions. They claim to do thorough background checks. We're investigating them separately, Rivera nodded. Continue. Emma recounted the interview, Nessa's immediate connection with Sophia, her gradual integration into their household. David stared at his hands as Emma described the small changes in his behavior. Coming home early when Nessa was there, texting her directly about Sophia. When did you first suspect something inappropriate? Rivera asked. About 2 months in, Emma replied. David started bringing her small gifts. Nothing extravagant, a scarf, a book. Then I found texts on his phone. David looked up. I never intended. Save it for your marriage counselor, Rivera interrupted. I need facts, not justifications. The detective turned to a new page. Now about Sophia's illness. The toxicology report identified thallium, a colorless, odorless compound once used in rat poison. Difficult to detect without specific testing. Emma's hand flew to her mouth. How would Nessa even get something like that? That's what we're determining. Ms. Mercer has a background in chemistry, something she conveniently omitted from her resume. We found evidence in her apartment suggesting she'd been researching poisons for months before applying to your agency. David paled. She planned this from the beginning? It appears so. We've interviewed her previous employers. The Kellers in Philadelphia, the Brantons in Boston. Both families had similar experiences. She became indispensable, pursued the husband, and when discovered, children mysteriously fell ill. But no one connected it to her? Emma asked incredulously. Rivera closed his notebook. The symptoms can mimic viral infections. Without reason to suspect poisoning, doctors rarely test for it. You were lucky Dr. Patel was thorough. Lucky, Emma repeated hollowly. The preliminary hearing came 3 weeks later. Emma sat rigid in the courtroom, David beside her, but separated by an invisible wall of hurt and betrayal. Across the aisle, Nessa's parents huddled together, looking shell-shocked. Nessa entered in handcuffs, orange jumpsuit hanging loosely on her frame. Emma barely recognized her. Gone was the warm, confident young woman who'd charmed her way into their lives. This Nessa was pale, hair limp, eyes darting nervously around the courtroom. The charges were read: attempted murder, aggravated assault of a minor, stalking, identity fraud, and multiple counts of child endangerment. Nessa pleaded not guilty to all charges. Your Honor, her attorney argued, Ms. Mercer has no prior criminal record. She's a young woman who made poor choices in a complex emotional situation. The prosecutor, Elaine Winters, rose. Poor choices? She systematically poisoned an infant with thallium after infiltrating the Reynolds family under false pretenses. We have evidence this was premeditated, calculated, and part of a pattern of behavior spanning years. The judge denied bail, citing flight risk and danger to the community. As Nessa was led away, she turned, her eyes finding Emma's. There was no remorse there, only a cold calculation that sent shivers down Emma's spine. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Mrs. Reynolds, how does it feel knowing your babysitter tried to murder your child? David stepped forward protectively. No comment. Please respect our privacy. Emma clutched her purse, knuckles white. I just want justice for Sophia. The prosecution's case built steadily over the following months. Detective Rivera uncovered Nessa's true history. Born Vanessa Louise Mercer in Scranton, Pennsylvania. Parents divorced when she was 12. History of behavioral issues in high school, including an obsession with a married teacher that resulted in a restraining order. She's been fixating on unavailable men since adolescence. Dr. Lillian Chan, the prosecution's psychiatric expert, explained during a preparation meeting. Each rejection reinforced her pathology. By the time she reached your family, she'd developed a sophisticated methodology. Emma shuddered. But why poison Sophia? If she wanted David? In her mind, Sophia was the obstacle, the ultimate connection between you and David. Remove Sophia, and that bond weakens. She wanted to kill our baby to get to David? Emma's voice broke. Dr. Chen's expression was grave. More likely, she wanted to make Sophia dependent on her care, create a situation where she became the savior, nursing Sophia back to health while you were consumed with grief and fear. David, who had been silent, spoke. She told me once that she'd make a better mother than Emma. I thought she was I didn't realize. Classic replacement fantasy. Dr. Chun nodded. She didn't just want your husband, Mrs. Reynolds. She wanted your entire life. The trial began in earnest 6 months after Sophia's poisoning. The media circus intensified. The poisoner nanny splashed across tabloids. Cable news dissecting every detail of the Reynolds marriage, the affair, the attempted murder. Emma's testimony came first. For 3 grueling days, she recounted every detail. Hiring Nessa, the gradual changes, discovering the affair, Sophia's illness. The defense attorney, Marcus Bellamy, was relentless. Mrs. Reynolds, isn't it possible you were jealous of Ms. Mercer's relationship with your daughter? That you resented how easily Sophia went to her? Objection, Winters called. Argumentative. Sustained, Judge Harmon ruled. Bellamy pivoted. You discovered your husband's affair the day before Sophia became ill, correct? Yes, Emma admitted. And you immediately fired Ms. Mercer? Of course I did. So you had access to Sophia after discovering the affair, before symptoms appeared? Emma stared in disbelief. Are you suggesting I poisoned my own daughter? I'm establishing timeline and opportunity, Mrs. Reynolds. The courtroom erupted in murmurs. Judge Harmon banged his gavel. Order. Winters stood for redirect. Mrs. Reynolds, did you have any knowledge of or access to thallium? No, absolutely not. And what was your primary concern when Sophia became ill? Emma's eyes filled with tears. Getting her help. Saving her life. David's testimony proved even more challenging. He admitted the emotional affair, the texts, the growing attachment to Nessa. Did you ever suspect Ms. Mercer might harm your daughter? Winters asked. Never. David's voice cracked. She seemed to adore Sophia. Yet you continued this inappropriate relationship, bringing this woman into your home, around your child? David looked directly at Emma in the gallery. It's the greatest regret of my life. During cross-examination, Bellamy was almost gentle. Mr. Reynolds, would you say Ms. Mercer was in love with you? I think she believed she was. And did you encourage these feelings? David hesitated. Not intentionally, but yes, I suppose I did. Did Ms. Mercer ever express jealousy toward your daughter? No, the opposite. She was always talking about how special Sophia was, how gifted. So you saw no indication she would harm Sophia? None. That's what makes this so horrifying. The scientific evidence proved damning. Dr. Ramirez testified about the thallium found in Sophia's system, the treatment protocol, the potential long-term effects they were still monitoring. This was not accidental exposure, he stated firmly. The levels indicated repeated, deliberate administration over several days. The prosecution presented evidence from Nessa's apartment. Chemistry textbooks with pages marked on toxic compounds, browser history showing research on untraceable poisons, a small vial that tested positive for thallium residue. Most damning was the testimony from Brenda Keller, whose son had fallen mysteriously ill in Philadelphia after she discovered her husband's emotional entanglement with their nanny, Vanessa Miller, another of Nessa's aliases. Tyler was 3, Brenda testified, voice shaking. High fever, vomiting, seizures. Doctors diagnosed a rare viral infection. He recovered but has learning disabilities now. We never suspected until Detective Rivera contacted us. Nessa took the stand in her own defense on day 12 of the trial. Gone was the disheveled appearance from the preliminary hearing. She appeared polished, demure in a conservative blue dress, hair neatly styled. I loved that family, she said, dabbing at tears. Especially Sophia. I would never harm her. Then how do you explain the thallium in her system? Bellamy asked gently. I can't. Unless. She hesitated, looking directly at Emma. Mrs. Reynolds was very stressed. Overwhelmed with work and motherhood. She resented how easily Sophia came to me. After she discovered my friendship with David, she was furious. The courtroom erupted again. Emma half rose from her seat, David's hand on her arm the only thing keeping her seated. Are you suggesting Mrs. Reynolds poisoned her own child and framed you? Bellamy clarified. I don't want to believe it, Nessa said, tears flowing freely now. But she wanted to punish David, punish me. Sophia was caught in the middle. During cross-examination, Winters was methodical. Ms. Mercer, you testified you have a degree in early childhood education from Penn State, correct? Yes. Winters approached with a document. Yet Penn State has no record of your attendance. You do, however, have 2 semesters of chemistry at Scranton Community College. Can you explain this discrepancy? Nessa shifted uncomfortably. I may have exaggerated my qualifications. Just as you exaggerated your name, your background, your references. I needed the job. And the thallium found in your apartment? The research on poisons? I was writing a crime novel, Nessa replied smoothly. It was research. A crime novel, Winters repeated skeptically. About poisoning a baby? About a woman wrongfully accused, Nessa countered, her composure slipping. Winters produced a final piece of evidence, a journal recovered from a storage unit rented under one of Nessa's aliases. Your Honor, I'd like to enter this as Exhibit 47. She read selected passages aloud. Emma doesn't deserve them. She's cold, distracted, always working. Sophia reaches for me now, not her. David looks at me the way he should look at his wife. They should be mine. We should be a family. Nessa's face hardened. That's private. And this entry, dated 2 days before Sophia became ill, started phase 2 today. Soon they'll see who really belongs in this family. The mask slipped entirely. You don't understand, Nessa hissed. I would have been better for them. I would have loved them properly. Closing arguments came after 3 weeks of testimony. The courtroom was packed, the nation riveted by the case that had exposed the vulnerability of even the most seemingly perfect families. Winters stood before the jury, her expression solemn. Vanessa Mercer is not a lovesick young woman who made a mistake. She is a calculated predator who targeted the Reynolds family, methodically inserted herself into their lives, and when threatened with exposure, poisoned an innocent child. The evidence is irrefutable. The thallium in her possession, her research into untraceable poisons, her history of similar behavior with other families, and her own damning words in her journal. She paused, letting her words sink in. This case is about more than a betrayed wife or an inappropriate relationship. It's about a woman who believed she had the right to destroy a family, to harm a child, to take what wasn't hers. Vanessa Mercer poisoned Sophia Reynolds deliberately, repeatedly, with full knowledge of what she was doing. Find her guilty of all charges. Bellamy's closing painted Nessa as troubled but not malicious, suggesting reasonable doubt about who administered the poison, implying that the investigation focused too quickly on Nessa due to the affair. My client made poor choices in her personal life, he conceded. But there is no direct evidence linking her to the poisoning. The prosecution asks you to make assumptions based on circumstantial evidence and character assassination. The jury deliberated for just 4 hours before returning with their verdict. As the forewoman stood, Emma gripped David's hand instinctively, their first real physical contact in months. On the count of attempted murder in the first degree, we find the defendant guilty. Emma closed her eyes, tears of relief streaming down her face. On the count of aggravated assault of a minor, guilty. On the count of stalking, guilty. On the count of identity fraud, guilty. On all counts of child endangerment, guilty. Nessa showed no reaction, her face a blank mask as the verdict was read. Only when the judge ordered her remanded to custody pending sentencing did she turn, her eyes finding Emma's across the courtroom. She'll never be safe, she said clearly before marshals led her away. Neither of you will. Sentencing came a month later. Judge Harmon listened to impact statements from Emma, David, and Brenda Keller before addressing Nessa directly. Ms. Mercer, you have shown no remorse for your actions. The psychological evaluation indicates you remain a danger to others, particularly to the Reynolds family. The premeditated nature of your crimes, the vulnerability of your victim, and your attempts to blame others demonstrate a disturbing lack of conscience. He sentenced her to 25 years for the attempted murder charge with additional consecutive sentences for the other charges, totaling 40 years without possibility of parole. As Nessa was led away for the final time, Emma felt a weight lift, not completely, but enough to breathe more freely than she had in nearly a year. Outside the courthouse, reporters again swarmed. This time, Emma stepped forward deliberately. Today, justice was served for Sophia and for every child Vanessa Mercer might have harmed in the future. Our family has a long healing process ahead, but we're grateful to Detective Rivera, Ms. Winters, and everyone who worked to keep our daughter safe. A reporter called out, "Will you and your husband stay together after everything that's happened?" Emma glanced at David, standing supportively nearby but giving her space. That's a private matter. Today is about Sophia's justice, nothing else. Back at Emma's parents' house, where they had continued to stay throughout the trial, Emma found David in the garden watching Sophia play. At 18 months old, she showed no lasting effects from the poisoning, a miracle according to her doctors. It's really over, Emma said, sitting beside him on the bench. The trial is, David agreed. The rest? He left the sentence unfinished. They watched Sophia in silence, the little girl completely absorbed in examining a butterfly that had landed on a nearby flower. "I found an apartment," David said finally. "Near our old house. I thought, when you're ready to go back, I should be close." For Sophia. Emma nodded, feeling a complicated mix of relief and sadness. That makes sense. Emma, I know I have no right to ask, but is there any chance for us? Not now, but someday. She considered the question that had haunted her throughout the trial. I don't know, she answered honestly. I'm still angry. Still hurt. But watching you fight for Sophia, seeing how you've taken responsibility, it helps. David nodded, accepting this uncertain answer as more than he deserved. I'll wait, he said simply, however long it takes, even if the answer is ultimately no. Emma reached for Sophia as she toddled toward them, lifting her onto her lap. We start therapy next week, she said. Separately at first, then maybe together eventually. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet. But it was a door left slightly ajar instead of firmly closed. A possibility neither had been certain would exist after everything they'd endured. One day at a time, David said, gently touching Sophia's curls. Emma nodded. One day at a time. The media frenzy gradually subsided. The Poisoner nanny case became a true crime special, then a documentary, then eventually just another cautionary tale about trusting too easily, about the vulnerabilities within even the most seemingly perfect families. Detective Rivera called periodically with updates. Nessa's appeal denied, her transfer to a maximum security facility, her continued refusal to express remorse. She still believes she was justified, he told Emma during one call. The psychiatric team considers her a textbook case of delusional attachment disorder. Will she ever get out? Emma asked, the fear never completely absent. Not for decades, Rivera assured her. And she'll never work with children again. We've also identified 2 other families she targeted before the Kellers. They're being notified, their children tested for long-term effects of poisoning. Emma thought of those other mothers, receiving the devastating news that someone they trusted had harmed their children. Tell them they can call me, if it would help. I will, Rivera promised. How's Sophia? Emma smiled, watching her daughter through the window as she played with her grandfather in the yard. Thriving. The doctors say there's no permanent damage. She's meeting all her developmental milestones. And you? How are you doing? It was a question Emma had become adept at deflecting, focusing instead on Sophia, on the practical aspects of recovery. This time, she answered honestly. I'm healing. Slowly. The nightmares are less frequent now. And David? Emma hesitated. We're in therapy, separately and together. It's complicated. Life usually is, Rivera said gently. For what it's worth, I've seen marriages recover from worse. Have you? Emma wasn't sure she believed him. The ones where both people are willing to do the work? Yes. It takes time, but it's possible. After they hung up, Emma joined her daughter and father in the yard. Sophia ran to her, arms outstretched, face alight with uncomplicated joy. Emma lifted her, breathing in the sweet scent of her hair, marveling at the resilience of children, their ability to move forward, to heal, to trust again. Perhaps, Emma thought, holding her daughter close, adults could learn something from that resilience. Not to forget, never that, but to find a way forward through the darkness, one careful step at a time. That evening, when David arrived for his scheduled time with Sophia, Emma made a decision. Would you like to stay for dinner? She asked. Mom's making lasagna. It was a small gesture, insignificant in the grand scheme of their fractured relationship. But as David's face registered surprise, then cautious hope, Emma recognized it for what it was. Not forgiveness, not yet, but a willingness to begin the long journey toward whatever came next. I'd like that, David said simply. Sophia, oblivious to the weight of the moment, clapped her hands in delight. Dada stay, she announced, reaching for both her parents. And for the first time in nearly a year, Emma, David, and Sophia sat together as a family. Damaged, changed, but somehow still connected by bonds that even Nessa, with all her calculated malice, had failed to completely sever. 6 months after Nessa's sentencing, Emma stood in the empty living room of their old house, dust motes dancing in the afternoon sunlight. Everything remained exactly as they'd left it the day Sophia was rushed to the hospital. Toys scattered on the floor, a half-empty coffee mug on the side table, family photos lining the mantel. "It feels strange," she said as David entered carrying a box of cleaning supplies. "Like walking into a time capsule." David nodded, setting down the box. "We can sell it, you know? Start fresh somewhere else." Emma ran her fingers along the back of the sofa. "I've been thinking about that. Part of me wants to burn it all down, never look back. But another part doesn't want to let Nessa take one more thing from us." David finished. "Exactly." Emma moved to the window, looking out at the yard where Sophia had taken her first steps. This was our home before her. Maybe it can be again. They'd come to clean the house, assess what needed repairs after sitting vacant for over a year. Sophia was with Emma's parents for the weekend, the first time Emma had been separated from her daughter since the poisoning. "Where should we start?" David asked, maintaining the careful distance that had characterized their interactions since the trial. "Sophia's room," Emma decided. "It needs to be completely redone. New furniture, new paint. Nothing that reminds us of Nessa being in there." David nodded. "I agree." They worked in companionable silence, removing bedding, emptying drawers, boxing toys to be donated. Emma paused, holding a stuffed rabbit, the one Nessa had given Sophia. "We should burn this," she said flatly. David took it gently from her hands. "I'll take care of it." By evening, they had filled several trash bags and donation boxes. Emma ordered pizza, and they sat on the floor of the living room, eating directly from the box like they used to before Sophia was born. "I had my final session with Dr. Matthews yesterday," David said, breaking the comfortable silence. Emma looked up, surprised. "Final? You're stopping therapy?" David shook his head. "Not stopping. Transitioning. He thinks I've made enough progress to focus exclusively on our couple's sessions with Dr. Klein." Emma considered this as she folded a slice of pizza. "What did he say about your progress?" "That I've done the work to understand why I was vulnerable to someone like Nessa. The need for validation, the escape from responsibility." David set down his pizza, meeting Emma's eyes directly. "But understanding doesn't excuse what I did." "I know that." Emma nodded, appreciating his honesty. "Dr. Levine says I'm still working through trust issues. Not just with you, with everyone. That makes sense after what happened." They ate in silence for a moment before Emma spoke again. "I'm thinking of going back to work full-time. My boss called yesterday with a promotion offer." "Emma, that's wonderful. You deserve it." "It would mean longer hours, more responsibility." David understood the unspoken question. "I can adjust my schedule at the firm. Take Sophia after daycare, handle dinner on those nights." "You do that?" "Of course. Your career matters too." He hesitated. "Besides, I owe you more than I can ever repay." Emma shook her head. "This isn't about debt, David. It's about building something sustainable, something healthy for Sophia." As night fell, they finished cleaning the downstairs, making lists of repairs needed, furniture to replace. Standing in the doorway preparing to leave, Emma felt a strange reluctance. "It feels wrong to just lock up and walk away again," she admitted. David nodded. "I could stay. Sleep on the couch, finish the upstairs tomorrow." Emma considered the offer. 6 months ago, she would have refused immediately. Now, she found herself nodding. "That makes sense. I'll come back in the morning with coffee." "I'd like that." The next day stretched into the entire weekend. They painted Sophia's room a cheerful yellow, installed new shelves, assembled a toddler bed to replace the crib she'd outgrown. They worked well together, falling into the rhythm they'd developed during home renovation projects early in their marriage. Sunday evening, standing in the freshly painted, completely transformed nursery, Emma felt something shift inside her, a loosening of the knot of anger and hurt she'd carried for so long. "I think we're ready," she said quietly. "For what?" David asked, cleaning paint from his hands. "To come home. Me and Sophia. Not right away, but soon." David stilled. "Are you sure?" "No," Emma admitted with a small smile. "But I want to try." "And us?" David asked carefully. "Where do we stand?" Emma considered the question that had hung between them for months. "You keep your apartment for now. We'll have dinner together twice a week as a family. You can stay over on Friday nights in the guest room. We'll see how it goes." It wasn't everything, but it was more than David had dared hope for. "One step at a time," he agreed. 2 weeks later, they moved back into the house. Sophia ran from room to room, delighted by the familiar yet new space, especially her yellow bedroom with its butterfly decals and reading nook. The first family dinner was awkward but not uncomfortable. The first time David stayed overnight, Emma found herself checking the locks repeatedly, still haunted by the memory of Nessa's threats. But as weeks passed, routines established themselves. David arrived promptly on Tuesdays and Thursdays to make dinner. He stayed Friday nights reading Sophia bedtime stories, then retreating respectfully to the guest room. Their therapy sessions with Dr. Klein continued weekly, sometimes painful, always honest. They discussed trust, boundaries, forgiveness, not as an event but as a process. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, Dr. Klein reminded Emma during one particularly difficult session. It means choosing to release the power the hurt has over you. I'm trying, Emma admitted. Some days are easier than others. 3 months after moving back home, Emma woke to the sound of Sophia crying. She found David already in their daughter's room, holding her, soothing her back to sleep. Nightmare, he whispered as Emma appeared in the doorway. She's okay now? Emma watched them together, David's gentle patience, Sophia's complete trust in her father's arms. The sight stirred something in her, a reminder of what they'd once been, what they might become again. Stay, she said when David moved to return to the guest room. Just to sleep. But stay. With me. That night, they lay side by side in their bed for the first time in over a year, not touching but together, listening to each other breathe in the darkness. I miss this, David whispered. Just being near you. Emma didn't respond, but she reached across the space between them, found his hand, held it briefly before letting go. It was a beginning. Sophia's second birthday arrived with spring, a small celebration in their backyard with grandparents, a few close friends, and a princess cake that made Sophia squeal with delight. Emma watched her daughter, healthy and thriving, surrounded by love, and felt a surge of gratitude so powerful it brought tears to her eyes. You okay? David asked, appearing beside her with a glass of lemonade. Just thinking about how close we came to losing her, Emma admitted. How different today could have been. David nodded, his own eyes shadowed by the memory. But we didn't lose her. Or each other. Emma looked at him, really looked at him for perhaps the first time since before Nessa. She saw the changes in him, the lines of worry that hadn't been there before, the humility that had replaced his former confidence, but also the steadiness, the patience, the love for their daughter that had never wavered. No, she agreed softly. We didn't. That night, after the guests had gone and Sophia was asleep surrounded by new toys, Emma found David on the porch swing, looking at the stars. Thank you for today, she said, sitting beside him. The party was perfect. She deserved it. After everything. Emma nodded, then took a deep breath. I've been thinking about us. David turned to her, his expression carefully neutral. What about us? I think it's time for you to come home. Properly. If you still want to. Emma. David's voice caught. Are you sure? I'm sure that I love you, she said simply. I'm sure that Sophia needs both her parents. I'm sure that what happened with Nessa was terrible, but it doesn't have to define the rest of our lives. David took her hand, his eyes bright with unshed tears. I love you. I never stopped. Not for a single moment. I know, Emma said. That's why we're still here. She leaned forward, kissed him gently. Their first real kiss since before the nightmare began. It felt both familiar and new. Like coming home to a place that had been renovated in your absence. We'll still have bad days, she warned, pulling back slightly. Days when I remember and get angry all over again. I know, David nodded. And I'll be here for those days too. For all the days. Emma rested her head on his shoulder, looking up at the same stars they'd watched on their first date, from the roof of his college apartment. So much had changed since then, they had changed. But the core of what had drawn them together remained. One day at a time, she murmured. David's arm tightened around her. One day at a time. Inside, Sophia slept peacefully, safe and loved. Outside, her parents began the careful work of rebuilding. Not what was lost, but something new, something stronger, forged in the fire of their worst nightmare and tempered by the love that had, against all odds, survived. If you enjoyed this story, please hit the subscribe button and leave a comment below. Your support helps us create more content like this. Thanks for watching.